Thank you. Good evening, everybody. My name is Sarah Shearer, and I'm the president of the Albany Public Library Board of Trustees. And I'm going to call our October board meeting to order. Is there any public comment?
Good evening. Yes, we did receive one public comment. Scott will be addressing the comment later on during the meeting. But I can give you a heads up that it was surrounding possible use of pesticides, what the patron thought they witnessed. But anyone wishing to make a public comment is asked to send an email to publiccomment@albanypubliclibrary.org. That's publiccomment@albanypubliclibrary.org. Or you can also call and leave a voicemail at 518-290-6905. We ask that you leave your name and address with your comment. Public comments received will be read during designated times in the meeting. There's another opportunity at the end of the meeting for public comments.
Thank you, Becky. The next order of business is our consent agenda containing the minutes from our last full board meeting, the minutes from our special meeting, and the operating check register. Would anybody like to remove something from the consent agenda? Or it's okay. Or would anybody like to make a motion regarding the consent agenda?
Just one comment, there's actually no capital fund check register this month. That's as per Adam's Stump.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. Is there a second? Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we can all go into board docs to vote.
I vote yes.
And motion carries. Next up is our financial reports. Adam, if you want to take us through that.
Okay, am I good now? Okay, so the reports this month cover August 2021, which is about 16% of the way through our 21-22 fiscal year. As of August 31st, our revenue and expenditure totals were both at approximately 16% of the approved 21-22 budget. You will notice the occupancy costs expenditures are at 26% of the budget as of 8/31. This is partially due to service contracts paid in the prior period being expensed during the current period. But additionally, our utility bills have been higher than expected, and several larger facilities projects have occurred, resulting in a higher than average building repair and maintenance expenditure total. The construction grant expense line also factors into this. And while we will see a significant amount of construction grant expenses this year, a portion of these expenses will be offset by grant revenue. The $42,571 currently reported as construction grant revenue was deferred from the prior period and has been recognized here. Payroll and related costs expenditures are steady at 15% of the budget, and as they make up the vast majority of the overall budget, allow for our overall expenditures to remain at 16% despite the variability, variability of some of the individual lines. And there were no capital fund expenditures during August 2021. So if anyone has any questions on any of the reports, happy to try and answer those.
Thank you, Adam. Does anybody have any questions regarding the finances? Thank you, Adam. Next item is committee and liaison reports. So first up is trustees reporting out on events and our activity with the library. Does anybody have anything they would like to share from this past month?
I got a home macrame kit from the Bach branch, and it even came with its own scissors. It was really great. I have not actually macrameed yet, but it was to promote a new DIY channel available to our patrons that I think is really exciting. And $3 that are overdue.
I'm not sure if anybody saw this, but when Facebook and Instagram went down, was that last week? APL had a pretty good Twitter game. I actually had friends texting me about it, and it later showed up in their Facebook marketing group. So props to whoever is running our social media accounts. That was it was really, really funny. And it definitely made the rounds because I heard from people. So it was well done.
I was co-applicant for the Nurse MC College Charter School, which was approved by SUNY. So we're very happy about that. We are looking forward to working with APL as we move forward and work out our plan for this new charter high school. And hopefully next fall, we'll have a new high school here and we'll be working closely with APL, we hope. Thank you.
Arlene?
I would just like to make note of the active participation of the Howell Library in things that are going on in the South End and city, really. I'm on the advisory committee for rebuilding the playground at Washington Park. Who was there? Howell Library. Okay. And they're very active with the South End Collaborative and very engaged in things that are dealing with workforce development. They have just made themselves available. So there's a lot to be proud of. And I would also like to thank the library for making itself available to me and colleagues of the Henry Johnson Foundation as we are working to identify developers for the restoration of the old YMCA. And so we toured the building, but we needed to have a place afterwards to meet. And Scott and team made the library available to us. And so you've helped us with the process immediately, so immensely. So thank you. I wanted to just note those two things.
Thank you, everybody. Moving on to trustee reports. Arlene, was there a UHLS meeting? Was there an ALS, a UHLS?
No, I did that last meeting. We met before in
Got it.
so that report was provided.
Thank you. So our first committee is the Audit and Finance Committee.
So the Audit and Finance Committee had a productive meeting and a productive month. We took a look at the request of the Policy and Governance Committee. We took a look at 2 of our policies, which are now going to be reviewed by P&G for regular updating. We also made a motion recommending that the full board move about $91,000 into the capital fund to help fund our major capital projects for the upcoming year that are mostly going to be funded by New York State construction grant, plus this $91,000. And that is going to be on our agenda later today. And then we also conducted interviews for the treasurer position, and which went well, and we recommended a candidate who is here tonight. And that is also on our agenda later in the meeting. Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions for Tom or the Audit and Finance Committee? All right. Next committee up is the Executive Committee. We also had a productive meeting. One piece of unfinished business. Scott gave us an update on the board retreat, which we will all see under new business tonight. We also reviewed the legal RFP that will be going out. That will also be under new business tonight. We discussed board member expectations. This was a document that was actually started a couple years ago. So we're just revisiting and trying to put the finishing touches on it to give potential trustees and new trustees an overall idea of what we do as trustees on the board. We amended our executive committee description, including those 2 items, the legal RFP. So future executive committees know that they need to look at that again in 3 years, just keeping a record of the timeline. And we took a look at the cleaned up version of the the DEI strategic plan framework that will be going to a strategic plan committee for further work. Are there any questions on our work in the executive committee this past month? Seeing none, our next committee is the Facilities Committee.
Yes, we also had a productive meeting as well. We met on October the 7th. We discussed North Albany. If you refer to the email that Rebecca sent on 9/24 with photos of North Albany, as you know, it's delayed a little bit because of the door frame. They sent that back. I think it was 9 to 24 weeks. They're waiting for the door. 9 to 14 weeks. And so the biggest challenge is the delay due to the, global materials and shortage. So they're looking at Thanksgiving currently as the goal for the final cleanup and a turnover to APL, to Albany Public Library. We also discussed what Tom alluded to, the DLD construction aid. We made a motion to bring that to the motion to accept the DLD and bring it to the full board, the construction grant, and to provide, the matching funds, as he just mentioned, that is going to be discussed later on. So we made that. And also we took a look at the 2021-2025 other projects that we had with Bach, as well as Pine Hills. And Pine Hills is really on the back burner right now. But Bach was having some drainage problems in the back. And so Adam is looking into that as well.
Thank you, Brigitte. Does anybody have any questions for the Facilities Committee? Seeing none. Next up is the Nomination Committee.
my goodness. The nominating committee met on the 15th and 30th of September and the 5th. And our purpose was to define the work of the committee. And we did that. So we formed a description of the committee. And we're also charged to identify a candidate that we could recommend for appointment to fill the vacancy that's going to occur when Matt leaves his seat. And we did that. We are very pleased with the product that we created with regard to our description and our timeline. And we are happy to present a candidate, highly qualified candidate for appointment to the board this evening.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Arlene or the nominating committee? I know a lot of the items that committees are reporting will be under new business, and we'll have further discussion there. So thank you. The next committee is the Personnel Committee. Sorry, yes.
Hi. I'd like to report out that the Personnel Policy and Governance Committee met this month, and we're looking.
There's one more before you.
Oh,
Personnel.
oh,
I mean,
They both start with
we
P.
can just swap it, but
I could pull it up.
no, it's good. I'll do personnel quick and then we'll get to policy and governance. So, the
Jenna,
personnel,
your mic.
oh, am I better?
Are you on?
Hello? No?
There you go.
Yes. Hello. So the personnel committee met on September 21st. That. Okay, hello now. Okay. So we were working on the Director of Human Resources and the Director of Finance positions, and we'll talk more about those later in the meeting. But we reviewed those descriptions. We also finalized the civil service letter, which all of you should have received before this meeting. We are hoping that the board will sign on to the letter to send it on to civil service. And that is regarding the changing of a specific job title to be non-competitive. We also have requested from Human Resources to give us the full civil service job description so that we can kind of do a better job making sure that our job descriptions match what the civil service descriptions are, / we have an understanding of kind of where any issues may lie. Because we will be reviewing every job description to ensure that it's accurate for APL, so that if we do need to continue to bring issues to civil service, we're aware of them. It was a productive meeting. We have another coming up, I believe, and I'm ready to take any of your questions.
Thank you, Jenna. And as Jenna said, we'll be discussing both of those items under new business tonight. And now policy and governance.
I see it as PAG, and that comes, I'll work on my alphabet. Thank you, everyone. We met and we were going through the cycle of reviewing all of the policies to see if they need to be updated or amended or continue as written. We sent 2 policies to Audit and Finance, and we'll be reviewing those at our next meeting. We reviewed the art exhibit policy, and we're going to not bring it forward because we need to look at the reconsideration form for both library materials and art. So that's in progress. And then we're going to be bringing 2 more policies that we'd like approved at today's meeting. And our next meeting is scheduled on October 26th.
Thank you, Sarah. Does anybody have any questions for the P&G committee? Okay, thank you. And before we move into the director's report, I just want to thank the entire board. We had every committee meet this month or this past month. I know we've had a lot of work to do, but just thank you, everybody. We've definitely been getting a lot done as a board, and I know meetings are tough, but I just wanted to thank everybody for really putting in a lot of effort this last month. Thank you. Executive director's report.
Sure. There we go. There are no positives or mandatory quarantines among staff this past month. That will change in the next report. We are rolling out public desktop computers at all of our branches again. Several branches celebrated Hispanic Heritage Month with programming and displays. Staff is working on what the tax assistance program will look like next year. That's a large project that we did not do during COVID, and we are bringing it back. I know you will get questions from the public about that. The Friends and Foundation and the Albany Bicycle Coalition co-hosted our second Bike the Branches ride that went from Delaware to Bach and then finished at Pine Hills. My favorite friend-raising event, and wished we did it every year. The sign at Pine Hills is being moved to create more public space in the front of the building. APL collection management services staff have been instrumental in assisting Upper Hudson Library System with editing problematic subject headings. So it's all a part of the anti-racism work circle that they have. And creative services staff published a new episode of the Albany Made podcast featuring noted author Mark Torres. And if I can, I'll move to monthly statistics before I'll take questions. Monthly statistics, all the statistics saw a slight decrease from the previous month. However, this is seasonal. We always see a drop in September. One metric that increased was program participation. This was primarily driven by online participation. So we're still seeing a demand for our online programming and our take and make programming, as was demonstrated by one of our trustees. There were 12 incident reports in September, so those are down from August. 6 of those incidents were here at Washington Avenue. 3 incidents involved verbal or physical threats, and 3 patrons lost library privileges. Again, compared to previous years, one silver lining to COVID is the fact that we have seen incident reports drop significantly, and incidents drop significantly. So I'll open the floor to questions.
How is the reintroduction of public computers going?
It's going fairly well. It's been, when I walk through the buildings that I'm in, they're typically in use. There are some people who just want to use a desktop instead of a laptop, and we've recognized that the feedback was strong. So we brought them back, and they're in use. They're relatively popular. So we'll see as we slowly bring them back. I mean, we're pretty close to bringing them back at every building. So the next month's report will probably note that there's public PCs at every building, not at the same amount. What we're going to do is we're going to sit down and observe how many computers are in use. And remember, at Bach, that building project is actually moving the public PCs. So, we're going through an analysis of how many we need out on the floor.
And where are we on public seating right now?
We're still operating with no public seating, but that is always something that the board can discuss moving forward in the future. You'll see every day our branches outside of the branches, the seating is well used. So there's obviously an interest in that. It will in information items because it was this month. Move on to informational items. So informational items, CDTA is starting a car share program and is interested in placing one of their cars at the Delaware branch. The general construction is moving along well at North Albany. However, the project will not be done in time due to the pre-constructed storefront that is probably on a boat somewhere off the Long Island shore. So we're waiting on that. During the Facebook outage on October 5th, our Twitter account started a satirical thread comparing the library to the online giant. This was our most successful social media thread to date. The stats are actually in the memo. That's the informational item memo. We have made it into the news roundups by media outlets from Utica all the way to Texas. We're really excited about Utica. The Friends and Foundation plan, they've scaled down the Literary Legends Gala, which is next weekend, this weekend, and that'll be at the Pine Hills branch. The event will both be held outside, inside, and virtual. So there are multiple options to go. And if you are going in person, you must be vaccinated. A patron did send an email to the public comment account. This patron stated, I don't know if this is a board matter or a staff operations matter, which was really great to have a patron thinking that way. I love that. Because of this, I reached out to the patron after an investigation. No pesticides are used on our properties, besides some bait that's occasionally used. But an herbicide was used, and we're finding out that our landscaping company may have been using our herbicide on weeds without our permission. So that will not happen again. The patron was very happy with the conversation. And I just want to, this is my last board report. So I just want to publicly thank the administrative staff for being an incredible group of people to work with over the past few years. I'm incredibly proud of them, and I look forward to their future success. The library is very, very lucky to have them. And one last thing, because we pulled it off the agenda, HR Solutions, we did receive a proposal for a human resources audit. Legal looked at this and decided that we need to talk about what their expectations are. So we'll be bringing it to the board under new business next month. And that's my report.
Thank you, Scott. Does anybody have any questions for Scott regarding informational items? Seeing none, we can move to unfinished business at this time. The first item is the legal RFP.
So attached is a draft request for proposals for the purpose of selecting a law firm to serve as general counsel for the Albany Public Library. The last RFP was done in 2005, so we're still under the threshold. No, we're still under the policy because that's 5 years, but we tend to do RFPs every 3 years. So this one will be for a 3-year term. This one was for a 3-year term that ended in 2019. This RFP is for services starting January 1st, 2022 and ending on December 31st, 2024. This has been reviewed by executive committee, and we ask that the board vote on it this evening.
I can take a motion on this, and then we can open up to further discussion once it's been seconded. Sarah? Thank you. Is there a second on the motion?
Second.
Thank you. At this point, are there any further questions on the legal RFP? Seeing none, we can all go to board docs to vote. And the motion carries. Thank you. The next order of business is the ACAP agreement. I will take a motion on the ACAP agreement, a second, and then we can go into discussion on it. Jenna, motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Arlene. Any further discussion on the ACAP agreement?
To clarify, this is fully vetted. This is ready to be signed if the board approves it.
I just have one question. Is that what's the time frame? Is that a year? 2 years? Oh, thank you.
And the motion carries unanimously. The next item under unfinished business is our discussion regarding location of upcoming board meetings. At our last board meeting, we discussed the change in New York State law where we are allowed to go remote again, or hybrid meetings or in-person meetings. At our last meeting, we decided to go fully remote for our committee meetings. And we said we were going to do this meeting in person for our full board meeting, but then we wanted to revisit the discussion on full board meetings at this time, whether we want to stay in person, go remote, or discuss a hybrid option. So at this time, I will open floor to discussion on what we would like to do for our upcoming board meetings. Jenna?
I'd like to make a plea to allow for remote or hybrid for our board meetings. I am taking immunocompromising chemotherapy drugs, and I shouldn't be in a room with this many people right now or at all.
I support that as well.
I think I made my intentions very clear that there are some of us that shouldn't be in a room with lots of people. And also for me, I have another handicap. I really can't hear the discussion on the other side of the room. So having headphones would be preferable.
Is there a preference between fully remote or hybrid?
I'm not going to tell other people where to be. I just want to be at my house.
Just a reminder, the technology would be very difficult to do hybrid because of the microphone situation. So it would be easier to do technology wise to do fully remote.
Just to be clear, so what the state of the law is right now is that the legislature passed and the governor signed a bill that runs out at the end of January. So you've got November, December, and January covered. Whether or not it'll get extended, I suspect will very much be a function of what the legislature wants to do when it returns in January and what the numbers look like and what have you. But there's some hearing activity happening in the legislature now about the open meetings law generally as a result of this. And so it may very well be that they propose something more permanent of this nature.
Uh, I I guess I'm indifferent as to between hybrid and remote. Um, yeah, the technology is a little cumbersome, so I'd be fine with remote.
And I can also get behind fully remote meetings as well. I know in our last meeting, we said there are definitely upsides to seeing each other in person since we did go over a year without seeing each other in person. But at this point, I think there have been some points that have been raised, concerns, and also just technological issues that maybe doesn't make hybrid meetings the best option at this point. So I can also support fully remote for the next 3 months for the remainder of the law. Is there any further discussion on this matter? I will accept a motion to do something. And then if we want to continue discussion after a motion and a second has been made, we can do that. Sarah?
I make a motion to go remote for the next 3 months and revisit it in January when there's more guidance from the state and the law.
Thank you. And that's for full board meetings. Is there a second? Jenna? Any further discussion on this? If there's no further discussion, can we go to board docs and vote, Rebecca, or is it? Okay, yep, not a problem. Sarah Dallas. Jenna. And the motion passes unanimously. And I will see everybody online. The last piece of unfinished business is the emergency connectivity funding receipt and implications.
So throughout the pandemic, the government realized that the access to the internet and technology for both students and workforce and lots of people actually was deemed a necessity instead of a luxury. So they produced the Emergency Connectivity Fund grant process. And while it was in theory geared towards schools, you could see it was designed to get technology in the hands of students. They did open up the wording to allow for libraries to apply for it. And we figured since we were given the opportunity, we would apply. And we actually received the grant funding. It was what we applied for was 100 laptops or Chromebooks and 100 hotspots to be handed out. And the intent of these are not to be checked out like our normal devices, how we do it now, but a Chromebook and a hotspot would be given or handed out to an individual through the end of June of next year, which is the length of the program. And then, so it wouldn't be just a 1 month checkout, it would be a several month checkout period to get them through the school year. One of the implications with this program and this funding is that they do require that the internet be filtered to accept the funding for this. Interestingly enough, because of how much money was being thrown at this project, were able to get pretty much all of the major vendors on board with this. So AT&T, T-Mobile, Sprint, Spectrum, all of them. And T-Mobile, who we normally do our hotspots with, has already contacted me and they said they can send the hotspots pre-filtered. It's part of the program. They're quite familiar with this. So it would be extremely easy to do. So this is a new foray for us. We have not filtered our internet access before, but this would, it's a lot of money. It's $60,000 to provide 100 of our patrons with internet access for almost a year. So just as an addendum, we did apply for this knowing that if we receive the funding, we would ask you guys before continuing on. It was a very short window, so we didn't have a lot of time to prepare for this. However, I will state that Paul Tonko did pretty much within 12 hours of us receiving notification, he submitted a press release stating that we did receive the funding because we were one of several libraries and schools in his district that received funding. So he has already publicly stated that we received the funding, which we were not aware that he was going to do. So we're asking if we were to accept the grant money, knowing that these units would have to be filtered.
2 questions.
Yep.
First one is, can the filter be turned off?
Not for this program, no.
Okay. The second thing is, usually when you get E-rate money, you need to have a technology plan. And I'm guessing that we need to write a policy on
Yes.
how
It would be, we would have to have how we would loan out at the, it would, similar to our loan, hotspot loaning document that we have now, that they take responsibility for the device, and they will agree to the return of the device on or within whatever set time period we have after June 30th.
And when would this go into effect?
As soon as if you guys vote on it immediately, then I would place the order.
Thank you.
Often when computers have filtering software on them, they require a lot of technology assistance because they filter odd things. How do we anticipate we deal with those sorts of issues?
With the filtering being done through the hotspot itself by a third party, we would probably, like any other thing, have a request for reconsideration and have to submit the website that's being requested to be pulled off of the filtering to T-Mobile.
Okay. So we might get patrons calling, unable to access school stuff.
Correct.
And we might not be able to.
We wouldn't be able to fix it ourselves, but we would have the capability of contacting T-Mobile to have that page whitelisted.
Got it.
Do you know what the turnaround is on something like that?
To receive the technology or
The request
whitelisting?
to allow a website?
We've never done it
Okay.
before, so I don't unfortunately know what the turnaround would be.
The benefit of doing it through a partner who's already doing it for other schools and other libraries will be that they will probably be receiving whitelist requests from multiple agencies and organizations, and they also will probably be setting up the technology, if not right away, but as things develop to make sure that, different schools, there are already other Albany students that'll be receiving this technology. So I'm sure that the Google Classroom, which is the most popular tool used in the district, I'm sure that they will work that out before the distribution, if not quickly after they discover that students can't get the Google Classroom.
And I will state that one of the ways that this grant was funded is a lot of individuals or a lot of organizations purchased the items first and hoped to get funding after the fact. We made the decision not to purchase until we found out we got funding. So there's actually individual organizations that have these items or these technologies since September, because that's when it went into effect.
How will we decide which 100 students get the laptops?
Our plan was to work with the school district and the charter schools in the area to figure out which students were in need, because it was opened up to library patrons as well. And this was identified through the foundation. We applied with them. We were going to also contact foundation individuals who have been attending or who would have liked to attend the FAPL, the foundation book talks, but they didn't have the ability to, because we can do that for patrons as well. So they were going to help us identify those patrons who have reached out to them saying, oh, I would love to participate in your book talks, but we couldn't.
Would this also be available to homeschooled students?
Yes, it would be. We would contact them as well. If there's any homeschool students that would be in need. We would work with the school districts first, charter schools, homeschools, and then move on to the foundation and other patrons that have expressed needs.
I think it's awesome, and I hate filtering, but that's okay.
And when the school year is over, do we get to keep the Chromebooks or?
Yes, we do.
So
Okay.
would we then be just lending them like we lend our regular Chromebooks, or?
That would be the decision of either, I don't know, we would probably have to have an internal IT discussion on how we would loan those, because we currently do not loan Chromebooks outside the library. They're all internal. And having 100 internal would probably be a little excessive. So we would have to probably determine after that if we would want to continue doing an outside of the building loaning of Chromebooks.
And right now our hotspots are super, super in demand, right?
Correct.
And so this would be adding to our hotspot.
This would be adding to the hotspots for the term of this program. They would be funded under the program. However, after the program ends, we would then need to come up with the money to fund the hotspots, and that's $30 per device per month. So that's something to take into consideration is if we would add them to our arsenal or if we would add them as backups to our arsenal.
I'd like to commend the grant writers because I know it's competitive. So whomever did it, fabulous.
Thank you.
Would somebody like to make a motion? Jenna,
Moved.
is there a second? Thank you. Any further discussion on this matter?
Luckily enough for us, there's a supply chain issue right now going on in the world, so it gives us a little bit of time to write that policy.
So just backing up in terms of the motion, is it to approve the filtering in order to accept the grant money? That's okay.
I'd like to approve the filtering in order to accept the grant money.
Thank you. Sarah Dallas, second. Oh, I'm sorry, Dr. Robinson, you seconded. And the motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, everybody.
Moving on to new business. The first item is the Alls Central Library 2022 budget.
So state aid is awarded to the Central Library, which is this particular branch that we're in two ways. CBA, Central Book Aid, its purpose is for the purchase of nonfiction, which is accessible to everyone in the library system's service area. And then there's CLDA, Central Library Development Aid. This funding is for services that can be used in the library system's service area. Always good to know. The only change from last year's budget is the reallocation of CBA money, Central Book Aid. The 2022 budget calls for canceling Ancestry Online, which you can all blame on me and send them to wherever I'm living when they figure it out. It will actually be available until June of next year. So I'll be hiding in the hills. And we'll be reallocating that money to purchase additional nonfiction ER material and make up for the increases in other services. As a Central Library Advisory Committee member, I seconded and voted yes on the above changes. Ancestry is popular but underutilized, and the demand for e-material remains significantly high. And this change would help alleviate pressure on this part of the collection. We do request that the board vote on this.
Is there a motion at this time that we can second and then enter discussion on? Tom?
I make a motion to adopt the 2022 Central Library Development Aid budget as proposed here.
Thank you. Is there a second on this motion?
I second.
Thank you, Arlene. Now, is there further discussion on this?
If I could add, there will be a group of libraries that will be meeting to discuss a group buy of ancestry.com so that it is possible that we might be able to bring it back if the price is lower. So the ship is not completely sailed on Ancestry. It's just that we won't be providing it using state funds. I think it's June, but don't quote me on that one. So if you have some genealogy you need to get done, now is the time to do it.
For some reason it's not coming up, but it is saved that the final resolution, the motion carries. I'm
Oh,
showing it on
you're-
my side, but I don't know why it's not populating like it normally does.
Not a problem. Thank you, Rebecca. So the motion carries. The next item under new business is the board retreat scope.
So attached is a scope of work for the trustee retreat. It's for the facilitator. This was put together by staff to clearly outline the expectations of the facilitator. We haven't done this before. This was reviewed by the executive committee. We don't believe a vote is necessary until we receive any type of contract to engage the facilitator. But we wanted the board to be aware of the expectations moving forward.
And the scope is actually based off of the poll that we all took as trustees, where we put our input, what we wanted to see in a retreat. So if you have any new or additional ideas of things you want to see in a retreat, we still have time to add items. But that's where the base of this came from. Are there any questions on this before moving on to the next item? Next item are the Director of Finance and Director of Human Resources job descriptions.
So these two job descriptions were brought forward to the Personnel Committee and reviewed by the Personnel Committee. We have not budgeted for these positions yet. We have not made a decision on their salaries, but we would at least get these. We would like these to be approved by the board before we start doing that work.
I would accept a motion on these job descriptions one at a time, a motion, a second, and then open discussion on each one.
I think that we just need a second, right?
Yes, you're right. Thank you, Jenna. Because the Personnel Committee voted on it. So if somebody not on the Personnel Committee would like to second one of these descriptions, then we can discuss further.
Second.
Brigitte seconds. Which description? Finance or HR? Thank you.
Director of Finance.
Any further discussion on the Director of Finance position?
Just a note that for the minutes, and what you may see as your motion will show as Sarah Shearer made the motion, and the second was by Brigitte. Obviously, it will be corrected in the actual minutes to indicate that the Personnel Committee made the motion.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Just clarification in my mind. So this is the job description, but are we waiting for civil service? Or is this an exempt position?
This is it will need to go to civil service. But it will be a management confidential position.
Thank you.
Both of them will likely be competitive class.
Thank you.
If there's no further discussion on Director of Finance, we can all go to board docs and vote.
It carries, but I think because there's more than one motion, this is the first time I've worked with more than one motion in the same item. So it's asking for a final resolution. The final resolution is that the motion carries. I'm trying to figure out how to separate them in the meantime. The motions are separate, obviously, but what board docs is looking for is weird, but the motion carries.
Thank you. Is there a second on adopting the Director of Human Resources job description? Sarah Dallas. Any further discussion on this position? Seeing none, we can go to board docs and vote in a moment. Oh, there it is.
Still doesn't show. Try unsharing your screen and sharing it again. That's it.
And the motion carries. The next item is the civil service letter. Jenna, do you want to do this or do you want me to do this?
I'm happy to take it. You know what? I know all about it. So this has been many years that.
Oh, make sure your mic's on.
So for many years, we have been talking with civil service about making our part-time, specifically positions non-combatant. It's all in the letter, but the reason for this is that we would like to have these positions, better reflect what the position actually entails. Oftentimes the civil service exam does not reflect the work of the library clerk, which is very customer service focused. So like to see these positions better reflect our community. Oftentimes the type of individual who has the capacity and knowledge to go through the civil service exam process is not necessarily the person who lives in the communities that we serve, or doesn't have the sort of community knowledge how to navigate that system. Also to be able to provide clerks when we have the turnover that tends to And oftentimes, because of the competitive nature of these part-time positions, it's very difficult to fill them speedy. So we were hoping, given those realities,
Yeah, that was an
the board
excellent
would be willing
summary.
to send a letter to send the civil service.
We don't
asking
need
them
a vote
to
on the letter.
reconsider
I
the
believe this was emailed out a week or so ago with an option to comment or edit or ask questions on the letter. I didn't see any. So this letter is planning to go out, being signed on to by the entire Board of Trustees. So if you would not like to sign on to this letter, just let us know. Otherwise, it will go out signed on behalf of the entire Board of Trustees of APL.
And feel free to let me know that privately. It's fine if you don't want your name on the letter. You don't have to, because this is, yeah, we don't have to vote on it. So.
Thank you. The next item, the Clarity HR Solutions proposal was already moved up to informational items. So our next item is the DLD construction aid.
What we discussed in the facility plan, that we made a proposal to bring it to the audit committee. And as Tom mentioned, I think $91,000 will be allocated to the capital fund for two of the projects at Washington Avenue, matching the DLD construction aid. So those two, we're going to move on the HVAC and also the medical room, and then push back the asbestos. The asbestos cleanup in the boilers.
This vote will be for use of capital fund money, which is at $92,000.
So the Facilities Committee has already made a motion to that. So we just need a second on this motion for the full board. Would somebody like to make a second on this motion? Matthew, thank you. Any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, we can all go to board docs to vote.
I have a question that doesn't really have to do with this. Will these projects be held until we get official word from, so this wouldn't happen for another year?
No, these projects could actually start in July, once we're told.
This past July?
This current July. We can start them in July.
Right.
Yeah.
But are we going to wait until we get the official word?
Yes. Yep. These are kind of like, sometimes we've applied for DLD grants and it's on work we've already started. This is on work we plan to do in the future if we're awarded the grant. I have it on good sources that we will be awarded this money.
Just what did we do with that Clarity HR Solutions thing?
We brought that to information items because the agreement needs to be looked at by legal and we need to go back to them to discuss their proposal. That was removed by the chair on the advice of legal counsel.
Doesn't show. I'm not seeing anything. Just don't understand what is happening tonight. And the motion carries. The next two items are policies from the P&G committee. The first policy is the first aid policy.
We reviewed the first aid policy, and there were some minor things that we were concerned about. We wanted to expand it beyond an employee, but an individual in the building. And we had a lot of discussion, and feel free, Jerry or Brigitte, to add anything if I forget anything. We wanted the incident reports to be done as soon as possible and not wait for the next business day, because I think we thought that this was important to get done immediately while it was fresh in everybody's mind. And those are the two. Oh, the other thing we did was we decided that it was important to have an addendum of what was in the first aid kit supply and have it reviewed every month to make sure it wasn't depleted over the time. So basically each kit would have a minimum of, could serve 25 people, and that it would be checked by the branch manager or designee the first of every month and make sure that the kits are replenished as necessary and that they conform to ANSI standards. Do you have any questions about this policy?
I just want to clarify that the first aid supply list was just a separate, we had that previously. It was just a separate document and we decided that they should be combined.
And a timeline to be replenished.
Yep.
What is the current process for replenishing the kits?
The current process for replenishing of the kits is generally as needed. We ask that staff, if they're seeing supplies are running low, that they contact the facilities manager to let them know. They do get checked once a year when we do our normal like fire safety inspections. We do all of that safety checking at once.
I think the additions to this policy is really great, and adding that timeline and that monthly check is so important. So, and the list, putting it in the right place, I think is a good change.
Was there any reason why this policy was originally for employees and not all individuals on the premises? Like, was there any legal reason for that, or?
I know previously, being on P&G, there was a separate policy or standing orders for staff, I believe.
I don't remember any discussion of it, to be honest. I have a vague sense that there was an issue about staff maybe not wanting to perform first aid, but I don't remember why the policy was designed this way.
I sort of jumped the gun on that one. Questions. I know we still need a second on this. It's been motioned by the P&G committee, but we need a second. Thank you. Any further discussion on this policy before we go to board docs to vote?
Jenna, would you state your vote? There you go.
And the motion carries. The next policy is the travel and meal policy. And before I forget, I will take a second on this and then we can go to discussion. So somebody not on P&G, if you would like to second. Thank you, Brenda. Discussion on the travel and meal policy.
We discussed this, and there were some changes that we felt were needed to be made given the new law that was passed today. Well, it wasn't passed today. It was signed by the governor maybe on Friday, that trustees beginning January 1st, 2023, need to have 2 hours of continuing education a year in 2023. So we thought, why don't we add, because trustee education, whether or not it's a law, is important to help us do our jobs better. So we've added trustees, and with adding trustees, we suggested that perhaps the board president approve trustee travel rather than encumber somebody who is responsible to us, the board. The second thing we did was instead of changing this policy to reflect a per diem and that it gets outdated very rapidly, maybe every year, we are suggesting that we use the government per diem rate.
That was actually, we somehow missed. It was the government per diem rate. We clarified it to the New York State
Gonna
Comptroller's
say,
Office.
It,
I don't know why it didn't show up on this.
and it may have been, there were some comments in the version that were drafted, were posted before. It may have gotten pulled out then, but it's supposed to read, will follow the New York State Office of the State Comptroller's approved per diem rates in both 5 and 6.
And that it would update as those amounts change. We also talked about meals per diem. And that the other thing was, sometimes it's difficult to get original receipts because the Easy Pass on the Thruway is paperless now. So we thought that using the Easy Pass statement, if available, or the website rate from the Easy Pass. Then we had a little discussion about travel for non-company employees. And that was changed just to employees. I think that's the highlight of what we worked on. Any questions?
Becky, do you have that language on the changes that we,
I'm trying to fix it.
I can give it to you via email too, if you need me to.
I have a question, not related to that change. Are we, this says, I think this says we're adding tips to the list of things that can't be reimbursed. Is that right? Why?
Because the money, I believe, is taxpayer money. Do I have that right, Bob?
I'm not sure why you added tips. I don't think that would be a reason that you couldn't reimburse.
If, as long as it doesn't go over, I know what the discussion was. It was if the bill is over the per diem rate, that can't be. I was also wondering, when I read this earlier, about why Wi-Fi fees are not reimbursable when we have to use Wi-Fi to connect and do business. But
So you're saying that no matter what a meal costs, it'll be reimbursed at the comptroller's per diem rate, regardless of
correct,
how much tip you add.
correct.
Okay. Thank you.
It was also just brought to my attention under section 1 exceptions. We have exceptions to these policies must be made in writing and approved by the executive director, assistant director, or the chief fiscal officer. And we no longer have a chief fiscal officer, so that needs to be probably amended to or designee.
Do you think it's proper to table this to get all of these things worked out rather than take the time now to wordsmith it?
It's only a couple minor changes.
It's 2 changes.
And I mean, we also just approved a job description for a future chief financial officer that may or may not happen in the future, but.
Director of finance, not a chief fiscal
Oh, I
officer.
see.
That's
Okay.
so we can make the motion to accept with the discussed changes.
That is totally the board's prerogative. I think it's clear enough of what we need to do, but if everybody wants to go back and have another pass on it, it makes sense too. It's whatever you guys feel comfortable with.
No, I think that we should just make those changes that we discussed. It's only 2 with the designee from chief physical officer.
Yep, just change that. I just need the language for the.
Bob can send that to you.
Yep.
Did someone already make a motion before we discovered this? All right.
I think that the statement that Brigitte made is a way to amend it, is to approve the policy with the changes discussed.
What item number 120? What is the per diem rate? New York State per diem? What is that?
New York State Comptroller's Office per diem rate.
Sarah Dallas, would you like to state your vote?
Oh, aye.
And the motion carries.
I did write a better motion, but it didn't, it's like I have 3 board docs open right now. So truly the motion, it reads, motion to adopt revised travel and meal policy, changing chief fiscal officer to designee and citing the New York State Comptroller per diem rate instead of the government rate.
Thank you, Rebecca. The next item is the executive director contract amendment. The language you will see is what we had discussed prior. I believe there is one new piece that was added, granting the executive director the opportunity to purchase library assigned laptop and cell phone for the surplus cost of $600. Otherwise, it's the amendment of 60 days notice down to 37 days notice. And the contract ends on October 31st, 2021. I am looking for a motion on this, a second, and then we can further discuss.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt the amended employment agreement between the Board of Trustees of Albany Public Library and the wonderful Scott.
Thank you, Brenda. Is there a second on the motion?
I second.
Oh,
I saw Matthew, sorry. Any further discussion on the motion?
This is a technical question, if you don't mind.
Just a moment, Sarah, sorry. Resolution, not
Motion to approve the resolution.
motion to approve the resolution. Yes, Sarah.
The computer, would all the proprietary things be wiped clean?
Any proprietary software or data will be removed by the IT department, and it will just be re-provisioned to him clean.
I thought so, but I just felt I needed to ask that. Thank you.
My IT staff was, as soon as they were asked if this could be done, that was their first order to ask me. So yes.
And the motion carries. At this point, I will ask for a motion to go into executive session with the trustees, council, and executive director present for the purpose to discuss the appointment of individuals or persons. I believe that's all of it. Well, the shortened version.
Works.
Would somebody like to make that motion? Sarah Dallas. And is there a second? Arlene. Arlene seconds. And we can go to board docs to vote. And the motion carries. So at this point, we will very nicely and politely ask some of you to leave for temporarily while we go into our executive session. And we will let everyone know as soon as we come out of executive session. Yes. Of- of- All right, back to new business. We are on item 9.9, appointing a trustee. The motion to adopt the resolution appointing Donna Dixon as trustee to serve the remainder of Matthew Finn's term was made by the nominating committee. We will need a second from the floor, and then we can discuss. Jenna, thank you. Further discussion on this motion to approve the resolution. If there's no further discussion, we can go to board docs to vote. And the resolution is adopted. Welcome to the board, Donna. I look forward to working with you. The next item under new business is appointment of a board treasurer. The Audit and Finance Committee has approved the motion of the resolution appointing Sean Smith as our board treasurer. Would somebody like to second the motion to approve the resolution? Brigitte seconds. Any further discussion on the motion to adopt the resolution?
I'd like to just quickly say that thank you to everybody on this board and Adam who helped with this process of finding a treasurer. And I think we found an excellent candidate and I'm looking forward to working with him and I look forward to voting in the affirmative.
And the resolution passes unanimously. And we will be, I will be swearing our new trustee and our treasurer in as soon as we gavel out of our meeting. We're going to keep our live stream on and swear both of you in at that time. Our next item under new business is appointment of an interim director. We have a motion here for a resolution appointing Melanie Metzger as interim executive director starting on November 1st. This resolution will need a motion and a second. Is there a motion on this resolution? Sarah? Is there a second on the motion to make the resolution? Arlene? Any further discussion on the motion? And we can go to board docs to vote. And the motion to approve the resolution carries unanimously. Melanie will be our interim director starting on November 1st. Almost through new business. Our last two items under new business are creation of two ad hoc committees. The first is the Executive Director Search Committee. We're looking for a motion to create this committee and a second. Jenna motions is. We need to include the number of trustees on the committee as part of the motion. So appointing 3 trustees to the Executive Director Search Committee.
Yes, I mean, it's the issue that you run into is getting a quorum present such that it essentially takes over the business of the board. So you could go to 4, okay, no problem. If you went to 5 and it was a unanimous vote, it would essentially be a vote of the board because, you know, even though the meeting wasn't called for that purpose, it's the same quorum for the board. So I wouldn't go more than 4 trustees, and I'm not suggesting this at all, but because it's an ad hoc committee, you can have non-trustees on these committees too.
I'd like to make a motion to create an ad hoc committee for the executive director search of 3 trustees.
Thank you, Jenna. And actually, I also have a question on the number of trustees. Even if we officially appoint 3 voting trustees to this committee, all trustees are welcome to be present at all committee meetings and have their input.
Just not vote.
So there is a motion on the floor. Is there a second? Brenda, thank you. Is there any further discussion on the Executive Director Search Committee? Seeing none, we can go to board docs to vote. And the motion carries. And our last item under new business is creation of an ad hoc strategic plan committee. Would somebody like to make that motion? I'm seeing a nod from Arlene. Oh, go ahead, Brigitte.
I make the motion for the ad hoc strategic plan for 3 board members.
Thank you, Brigitte. And Arlene will second. Any further discussion on the ad hoc strategic plan committee? Seeing none, we can go to board docs to vote. And the motion carries. The next item on our agenda is the POP update.
There is no request for any changes at this time.
Thank you. And then we go to our second public comment of the evening.
No further public comment.
Thank you, Rebecca. And then I just have a few items under housekeeping prior to adjournment. First, if we can just go through the upcoming committee meetings. Audit and finance, do you think you're having a meeting in the next month? Okay. Executive committee is planning on having one committee meeting to appoint trustees to the new ad hoc committees. And executive committee will also be getting together to interview candidates to respond to the legal RFP. Facilities committee, do you foresee having a meeting in the next month? Okay. Nominating committee, do you foresee having a meeting? No. Personnel committee?
Yes.
Yep, and we are already on the books for a week from tonight. And policy and governance, I believe you already have your next meeting scheduled. Perfect. And then, committee preferences. So the ad hoc committees that were just created, I will be emailing everyone a survey so you can state your preferences if you're interested in being included on either of those ad hoc committees. And the executive committee will make our appointments in the next week or two. And then last two pieces, bittersweet. Yes, this is where I'm going. So we have a trustee departing tonight. So I remember when I joined the board, because I've served on this board with Matthew 4.5 years now. And for some reason, my first memory is my first board retreat, just how nice you were to me. We ate lunch together. Matthew has just always been so nice on this board, and especially the last couple months, really helping me transition into the role of president. So thank you, Matthew, for your service. Your knowledge and expertise, in library has really been invaluable to this board. And I've really personally enjoyed working with you as a trustee. So.
Here, I have a thing. I have a whole thing.
Oh.
All right. I'm gonna say.
Can you hear me? Am I on? So thank you so much. I have my little headsets on. Thank you so much for that statement. This board has meant a lot to me in just being able to serve the community, and I've really enjoyed working with everybody on board, past and present, who I've served with, and all of the staff that I've worked with. It's been one of the highlights of this last previous phase of my life before I go into the next one. So thank you all.
Losing you and Aaron will be a loss to the whole city.
We're taking you up on that offer to come visit you in Spain. I tried to, I don't know, it's not a photo bomb, but I tried to get in behind your video. And last but not least, we're also losing an executive director tonight. Not officially tonight, but tonight is his last board meeting. Scott. I feel like I've made this speech multiple times already, but not in a full board meeting. I've also really enjoyed working with you over the last 4.5 years. You've done so much for this library. I know you joke and you say you came in, as a young kid, but I think you brought a really unique perspective and just a really great energy to Albany Public Library. I actually ran into a trustee from another local library a couple weeks ago, and she told me she had executive director envy. I will not name the library, but she was very aware of APL happenings and Scott Jarzombek. So again, we're going to miss you, but we of course wish you well in your next chapter. So thank you for your service to APL over these last few years.
Thank you. For the time and energy you invested in me and invested in this organization. This is where I started. This was kind of if you had told me 15 years ago or 20 years ago, God, how long ago it would have been, this was a joking aspiration, like, oh, someday I'll be director, not really taking that seriously. And the fact that I got here, and I really think this is what I'll be most proud about in my career. I love this place and I will always love this place. I love the city. I will always love the city. Sometimes you gotta walk away from the things you love to keep loving them. So that's what I'm doing. And I appreciate everybody's energy. And again, I'm really proud of what APL is today. And that has to do with the hard work of board members, my amazing staff who really hard to leave them. I'm not even gonna look over at that side of the table because I'm not gonna cry about public meeting. So just thank you, everybody. You're awesome. This library is in really great hands and I'm really excited to watch this place grow and be big and say, hey, I was a part of that. And I'm always gonna be a part of that. So thank you, everybody. Yeah, not happens. Later.
So I believe that now brings us to our last item of business, which is adjournment. I believe, would somebody like to make a motion to adjourn? Matthew Finn.
To adjourn the October 2021 full board meeting.
And would somebody like to second that motion? Brigitte, any further discussion on the motion? We can all go to board docs to vote. And remember, we are staying on live and we're going to do a couple swearing ins. Actually, Donna. Yeah.
Sorry, you want to come a little closer?
Oh, that mic's on?
I have this mic on, and I'm just trying to get you this. There you go.
You're kind of looking at Walter. We're both in the shot and the mic is on? Okay. You raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Donna Dixon. I, Donna Dixon. Do solemnly swear. That I will support the Constitution of the United States. That I will support the Constitution of the United States. And the Constitution of the State of New York. Constitution of the State of New York. And that I will faithfully discharge. And I will faithfully discharge. The duties of the office of trustee. The duties of the office of trustee. Of the Albany Public Library. According to the best of my ability. According to the best of my ability. Congratulations. Thank you very much. If you would raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Sean Smith.
I, Sean Smith.
Do solemnly swear.
Do solemnly swear.
That I will support the Constitution of the United States.
That I will support the Constitution of the United States.
And the Constitution of the State of New York.
And the Constitution of the State of New York.
And that I will faithfully discharge.
And I will faithfully discharge.
The duties of the office of treasurer.
The duties of the office of treasurer.
Of the Albany Public Library.
Of the Albany Public Library.
According to the best of my ability.
According to the best of my ability.
Now that